Mr. Sakai, welcome. You've had a long career in the Asian Development Bank, and you're currently the Director General of Strategy and Policy, with a particular focus on, obviously, on strategic direction within the Asian Development Bank, but also on a number of the institutional relationships that the Asian Development Bank has, both regionally and globally. Over to you. Thank you.
Can I stand up and talk so that I can see all of you? Thank you very much, Alison. Well, there is a slide that we prepared, but I won't use it. But I think ODI colleagues can distribute copy of the slides. Well, I'd like to bring in some Asian perspective here. And when I talk about Asia in the context of development cooperation, I usually talk about two faces of Asia, knowing that when we talk about development poverty, people's attention is usually to Africa, not to Asia. Two faces. One face is the face that many of you know. Asia is probably most dynamic region in the world, fastest growing region. And as I think Srimuniani mentioned already, Asia now accounts for more than half of global economic growth every year. So this is Asia. But Asia has another face. And that is not so nice because still 2/3 of the world's poor are in Asia. And many Asian countries are far behind achieving Millennium Development Goal target, particularly non-income targets by 2015. So this is the reality of Asia that we are seeing. But the landscape is changing very rapidly. And in our bank, Asian Development Bank, we have today, I think, 39 active borrowers from us. And already today, out of 39, only 6 countries are low-income countries. And the projection by our economics and research colleagues told me that by 2024, only 2 will remain low-income, Afghanistan and Nepal. So the picture is changing very rapidly. Even for the poverty, today more than 550 million people in Asia live on less than $1.25 a day. By 2024, again based on the same projection by my colleagues, the number will be less than 30 million and only 1% of the total population. So it's changing very rapidly. But does this mean that we don't have challenges in Asia? The answer is no. Actually, some of the challenges were already mentioned by Ms. Srimuniani. One challenge I can cite is growing inequality. Of 20 countries where we have reliable data, 14 experienced increase in equality in the past 20 years, and this trend is accelerating. This is quite worrisome because there's no need for putting, please shut it off. Okay. Because this is worrying because inequality will probably dampen the positive impact of economic growth in poverty reduction. And also this will lead to social tension, even maybe a conflict. So this is very worrisome. The second challenge, again already mentioned by Ms. Srimuniani, is middle income trap. I said most of our bank's member countries are already middle income, but 14 of them have been middle income status for 20 years or even more than that. So countries can move up from low income status to middle income status, but there is no guarantee they can further move up the ladder and become high income. So this is a big challenge. And finally, a challenge of climate change. And here, Asian countries are both sort of culprits for climate change and victims. Culprits because already today, 33% of global CO2 emissions are from Asian developing countries, particularly middle-income countries. And this is likely to reach 45% by 2030. But they are also victims because they are still heavily relying on agriculture. Their production bases are located in coastal areas, so they will be affected by climate change very seriously. If I cite just a couple of examples, by 2050, if the trend continues as we are seeing today, half of rice field in Vietnam will be under the water and disappear. And in Indonesia, again, based on same projection, 25% of city of Jakarta would be probably underwater. So this is really a very serious challenge for Asia. Now the question is what the countries should do in this context, in which way development cooperation can help. And if I try to be very courageous or bold in summarizing this, what countries have to do, just in one sentence, although there are so many things that they have to do, I think they have to make their growth process more inclusive and greener. So I think this is, in a nutshell, what countries have to do. And then what we have to do through development cooperation. And I think when I think about these needs of Asian development countries, and in the flight coming from Manila to this, I read some of the papers mentioned in the, as reference materials in the conference note. And I found that the paper by Severin and Ray, this end of ODA, provides good framework, because the paper says basically we have three objectives of development cooperation today. The first one is to accelerate economic growth of developing countries. Second is to provide basic human welfare. And the third is find solutions to the preservation of global public goods. So I think these three objectives fit very nicely into challenges of Asian countries. And also, when I think about development cooperation in this framework, the other papers that I read, including one by nothing other than Mr. Rogerson here, also by the paper called Future of Development Financing by Shafiq. They are talking about different players, and also Shafiq's paper is talking about coalition of different players. And I think here again, this fits very nicely into the picture. I can think about, different players like traditional official development assistance providers like ourselves. We have civil society, including philanthropical funds, NGOs, and this people-to-people direct transfer, which is now happening, and finally, the private sector. These papers also mention, as Mr. Rogerson mentioned just now, South-to-South cooperation, emerging donors, as well as climate funding. But in my view, maybe these can be seen as part of these three players and how they can interact each other. And in the context of this new picture, when I think about the role of official development assistance providers like us, what would be our role? I think we can still continue to play a major role, particularly in strengthening institutions, systems. And here, again, as Ms. Rimuniani said, knowledge is a very important element. But also we can provide financing for large-scale development projects, including infrastructure. So maybe that is the way institutions like Asian development should go in coalition with other partners. But even in that kind of thinking, I have maybe a couple of fundamental questions. First, when we see the poverty in Asia is almost eradicated, will our shareholders, taxpayers in our shareholding countries, will they accept shift of our goal from poverty reduction to regional and global public goods? I don't have an answer, but at least I'm seeing some encouraging sign. For example, the ongoing discussion about post-2015 post-2015 development goals, which is likely to have more sustainable elements there. And if you look at our own institution, Asian Development Bank, we have a long-term strategy adopted by all our shareholders in 2008. And this strategy already includes as major strategic element or strategic agenda, environmentally sustainable growth and regional integration, in addition to poverty reduction through inclusive growth. So I think maybe there is a positive discussion trend. Another question is the modality of assistance we can provide. And here I'm very happy, this morning at least some people mentioned not only IDA, but IDRD. What I note in many papers talking about development cooperation, future of development cooperation, they talk about AIDA, they talk about Asian Development Fund, they talk about African Development Fund, but not IBRD, not IFC, not Asian Development Bank, not African Development Bank. If I use example of my institution where I work, out of about $14 billion of projects that we approve every year, only $3 billion is financed by Asian Development Fund, which is relying on sort of grant contribution from donor countries like UK. Remaining $11 billion, we raise funds in the market and make these funds available to our client countries. And for this part, of course, we are getting shareholder support, but $1 of capital injection by shareholder will allow us to lend $4 billion. So in my view, this is more efficient. Also, this is a way where we can reduce the burden on taxpayers in developed countries. So I think the future of official development assistance, particularly in the case of Asia, will be shifting from concessional financing to more commercial-based financing. And even in this area, we have to make more efforts for better leveraging through more aggressive use of public-private partnership approach and utilization of risk mitigation and credit enhancement tools. So I will end here, and I'm looking forward to exchanging views with you. Thank you very much.
Very much indeed. Thank you.